Come late 1980s, a young Kentaro Miura was swamped with work. Not only was he a college student, but he was drawing manga. No easy feat. Between his own works like Noah and collaboration with legendary mangaka Buronson, you can imagine he had no time. Yet even under extreme pressure, he was working. Proved when Berserk the prototype was unveiled. The 1988 one-shot was the world's first look into Berserk, it being a gritty, dark tale sure to invoke emotion, though ultimately its existence would go rather unknown. But that's only because Animal House rolled the dice and made that simple one-shot into a series, changing the future forever. Nowadays, you can find this prototype chapter archived in the most random place ever, at the end of volume 14. This is a bit after the eclipse and a bit into the Lost Children arc. It gives the feeling that Miura realized his manga was getting pretty deep. So before it gets any deeper, he should reveal his origin story, cause why not? Curiously, this chapter comes alongside a description, basically saying, this is the basis for Berserk. While the details differ from current Berserk, the intent between both is the same. It also notes that it takes place after the conclusion of the Band of the Hawk or Golden Age story arc. So cool. Change the character designs and details to what we're used to, and this is just another tale of Guts' dark time as the Black Swordsman. I like it. The road is lined with skeletons, all leading in some far off direction. The Black Swordsman stumbles upon them. It's a bit extreme for scarecrows. Interestingly enough, this form of Guts taps his pouch to ask if Puck is scared, which I couldn't imagine our Black Swordsman doing. He then views a group of bandits crashing into a girl and pinning her down with a sword. She's terrified, crying out as one of the gross men goes to lick her. The bandit is then hit by an arrow straight through the head, the other through the mouth, and the final man takes a shot to the eye, revealing what we already know. It was Guts who killed them. This design is very reminiscent of his current design. Honestly, it's the situation where Miura got it right on the first try. Though two things differ. One, Guts is using a crossbow rather than just have it be part of his mechanical arm. It's a very simple difference, but I'm happy this was removed. I like to see the sword in his hand and it makes the sword feel more important. Then secondly, the obvious one, the eye patch. It's very odd to see Guts have an eye patch after being used to him not having one. But I mean, it makes sense. People who are missing an eye will cover them up all the time. Though I guess we can assume this form of Guts has gone through the eclipse or is something similar. Guts walks up to the girl's carriage, looking for some food when a bandit approaches from behind, and Guts turns to rip him in half with ease. Yeah, now that's our Guts. He puts the sword on his back. Also, hey, it's the same old Dragon Slayer. It's actually literally the exact same, it's just pointed? What would you even call this? It looks cool though. The girl is in awe over Guts' sword, him walking away all awkwardly as the girl pains over her injuries. And so he turns around. His face is far more animated as he picks up the girl onto his horse, stating he's only doing this for food. And yeah, this Guts is far more alive seeming and dare I say, tsundere? I mean, our Guts would say nothing and leave quick. Though this one picked up the girl seeing her in pain and made a silly excuse as to why he did it, when it's all obviously because he cares. Also, he did all this with like 8 facial expressions. That's like the amount our Guts has done in nearly 400 chapters. Point is, this Guts is the same, but he's also very different. Also, the girl kind of looks like Griffith. Am I crazy for saying that? It's then Puck pops out of the pouch. The girl was messing with it and pushing it around, so he jumped out. She lights up. Puck is cute, which he proudly flaunts before kicking Guts. Silliness ensues and the girl concludes saying she thought Guts would be scarier, but since he's with an elf, he couldn't be a bad man. Again, leaving Guts with a silly facial expression and looking away. I really do not like this tsundere thing, but good old Puck looks the exact same except those wings. They're very beautiful, but I don't think they mesh too well with Puck's simplicity. Current Puck's wings are very simple, and it just looks better. Simple is a good thing, just me though. It also seems the idea of Guts traveling with an elf to make him seem lighter was always there, which is something I absolutely adored from the Black Swordsman, so I'm happy to see it. The trio then reached the girl's village, giving us her name, Frika. Everyone is happy to see Frika, so they let Guts stay the night, and that night he's told about the village's lord, Vlad Tepes. It's revealed the row of skeletons was his doing. He took people and impaled every last one. Women, children, priests. When I said anyone, it was anyone. He set them up as a message on the border. The man explains that when the Lord ran out of enemies, he got bored and messed with his own people, stating the Lord gathers women and butchers them night after night. One time they even found a corpse. And with this, it's revealed Frika was meant to be the Lord's next. That's why she was out there. Men then burst into the room to speak to Guts. They want him to kill the Lord. He thinks this is insane. Not only would he be putting his life on the line for people he doesn't even know, but they could never reward him enough. Even when an old lady, grandmother of the corpse found, begs, Guts becomes reminiscent of our Guts, stating he couldn't care less for their generosity before leaving. Puck follows screaming, calling him a jerk over and over as he reveals something interesting. Being a person who had a family member killed, Guts should understand the most. Frika then runs up, asking to take something of Guts's as a memento, which, I couldn't imagine him doing, but of course this tsundere Guts offers up his eye patch. Or at least now he looks like our Guts all the way. Speaking of looks, Miura's art style in this prototype is a bit, well, I'll say strange, at least when compared to how Berserk ended up looking. The main takeaway is that it's very similar to other manga greats of the time, this being something that continued into the actual Berserk. Things like thick eyebrows, big wide expressionate eyes. Though one thing really missing for me is the darkness. The art is very light, Guts' facial expressions are very light. And it gives a hint that maybe Miura hadn't found the art style to fit the vibe he was trying to give yet. Something that definitely is a lot more apparent in the first few chapters of the actual series. It's just something interesting to know. Puck can tell Guts cares a bit too much for Frika. He tries to deny this as Puck cries out. Guts lives for nothing but dead people. He shouldn't do that. It's sad. Guts grabs Puck, revealing his mother was torn apart and eaten while still alive. She had become a piece of meat in front of him. He lets go of Puck and apologizes. That hatred, that sadness, it's all he's got. Killing them is all that keeps him going. He has no life to spare for others. Yet then as the sun sets, he spots Frika in a carriage branded with a certain crest. This seemingly being what Guts searches for. So not only is his Guts more of a softie, but his story is a lot different from our Guts. Though this does make sense. Miura apparently wasn't so set on the story when Berserk began, so it's shifting this early on, well, that's just what you gotta expect to happen. I do have to say though, this Guts' story is very brutal. The line about her becoming a piece of meat before his eyes is horrific. It's definitely perfect for Guts. Though it is a bit odd when you contrast it to how he's acted. Regardless, he's going after Frika because that mark clearly points towards that brutal event of his past. In the castle, Frika is brought before the Lord, an ominous man covered in shadow, very reminiscent of the Count. Also, he's got a ton of blood in the background, which is obviously not good. She feels pulled towards him. When he touches her, his hands are cold, and the scent alongside his eyes, it's clear the Lord isn't human. An arrow then lands in the creature's eyes. Guts came after her, and this panel is so cool. The Lord removes the arrow alongside his eye. He tanks Guts' other shots, revealing what we already knew. He isn't human. The floor then collapses from under Guts. A flurry of weaponry is thrown at him. He dodges many, but is ultimately speared to a pillar. The Lord smiles as he assumes victory, yet Guts won't go down just like that. He smiles, licking his blood as he removes the spears, grabbing the Dragon Slayer on his back and brandishing it, yelling he'll mince the Lord up. A dog of Vuana's, who we can assume is like Griffith right now. The Lord then begins to transform. the room collapsing under the weight of his pressure. He bellows, how could Guts know that name? The Lord of the Inhumans, the most powerful god, the name of the ancient deity of darkness, Vuana. His final form is huge and monstrous, featuring giant horns with crushing teeth. I thought he had initially resembled Zod a bit, but there's no way, they're just not similar enough. When you compare him to Berserk's first real apostle, the Count, well, they look similar as humans, but when it comes to their apostle forms, they're nothing alike. So I just ask, what does he remind you of? Guts instantly jumps into battle, crushing the rubble to bits as he faces off against the demonic lord. He brings his sword down but is grabbed, things looking dire as he's lowered into his grotesque jaw. Yet he smiles. He said he was gonna mince him. He reveals his metallic arm, drops the hand, and fires, blowing the lord's head to bits as he's slammed to the other side of the room. He isn't done yet though. He takes the Dragon Slayer and drives its rough blade straight through the monster, covering the room in blood and guts. Puck and Frika cheer as the demon states its final words. It's impossible. No human could beat an apostle. But Guts simply responds, who else but a human would hate them this much? On Guts' chest is a brand, one the Lord calls a brand of sacrifice to Vuana, revealing this concept was something Miura always wanted to use. The room collapses as Guts appears as a demon, reveling in the defeat of an apostle, now one step closer to his mortal enemy. Alas, with this, Frika is returned home, the village is saved, and Puck and Guts are left to their journey. The elf then notes that Guts was scarier than the apostle. He was sinister. But Guts goes on. He'll give them as much flesh and blood as they want. He'll jam some steel into their heads. And like that, this small prototype episode is over. This prototype chapter is very interesting. It's remarkably similar to how Berserk really began, though it's also astonishingly different. In this prototype, Guts appears to save a girl. Puck is introduced, Guts is shown out to be rather edgy yet heartfelt, all before he kills a big bad demon and in turn saves the day. Looking into what the published Berserk's Black Swordsman looks like, we meet Puck, get a good feeling for Guts' coldness before he kills the demon, and although in a far more unintentional way, does save the day too. Alongside this, we get many familiar concepts. Guts' weaponry, his lost eye, his quest for vengeance, his deep hatred, and of course, the brand. These are all things Miura knew Berserk had to have, even if they're a bit different between the two. But I do want to note one pretty cool thing. The story pretty much opens the same way. Just replace Puck with Frika. They're both bothered by bandits before Guts kills them with an arrow, stands there cool, and finally chops one clean in half. It's like Miura remastered this scene, and it ends up being perfect. I really like it. It's like a simple bridge connecting these two, giving these two vastly different, yet very similar, forms of Berserk a connection. Though other than that, the biggest difference is, well, Guts. The Guts we receive in this prototype is far more similar to heroes around the time. He's very masculine and cool-headed, all with a subtle hint of a big heart under the rough exterior. It's really odd contrasted to the Guts we know, who is rather heartless, everything considered. I have to be honest, I think this Guts disturbs the prototype a bit. His heartfelt actions contrasted to his devilish dark moments don't really set a tone for the story. You can tell the prototype wants to have an edgy dark feeling, one Berserk is well known for, but it's like Guts doesn't want to show that. It's almost like it wasn't committed, and thankfully this changed. As I said, it's one of the biggest parts of Berserk, so it's needed. Though finally, one thing from this prototype really got me. One thing that is very different from Berserk, that being, Guts seems happy. It sounds so horrible to say, but he genuinely has that happyish vibe around him. He smiles in moments, he's happy to make Frika happy, and he'll even speak to Puck like everything is alright. It's odd. It's like a could've been story for Berserk, but it is Berserk. It makes me think of a Berserk where Guts could have been more personable, but at the same time, I think you know as well as I do, Berserk wouldn't be Berserk if Guts was any different. All in all, this prototype is definitely a fun read. Not only is an interesting look into a what if, but to witness the evolution of something we all love so much. Thank you for watching, and of course, I'll see you next time.